And welcome back. Tonight, another piece of very basic audio equipment. This is the Studio Standard by Fisher, model FM-226 3-band stereo synthesizer tuner. Taking a look at the back, we find that the AM loop antenna is missing. It's been ripped off, as you can clearly see. We have a 75 ohm FM antenna connector. Very interesting, we have a DIN connector for the AM antenna. Haven't seen one of those being used on equipment this new. The audio output is a RCA cable that is connected straight into the unit. And the AC power does not plug into the wall. This is a proprietary connector that plugs into the matching amplifier. And there we have the two components connected together, the beginnings of a stacked component system. But don't worry, I did not find the matching cassette deck and record player, and that's probably a good thing. The amplifier is already on. I got the tuner input selected. Let's push the power up here and see what happens. Nothing happens. Well, that's interesting. Okay, no worries. Simple problem, I already expected that. The backlight of the display, those are two incandescent light bulbs and they are burned out. So it is running, we just can't see what the display says. So the tuner itself does work if we just press our tuning button. It's automatically going to tune in stations. Servicing this amplifier is somewhat troublesome because you always need the amplifier to go along with it, unless you go and dig up an external 16 volts AC power supply. Anyway, our display backlight bulbs are down there. You can probably see them. Let's test this and see what kind of a voltage we have. Have this switch to AC and okay, 16 volts. We are putting the AC input from the amplifier straight through into the light bulbs. Looking at the circuit board, so you can see this one got really hot, and the other one, which is totally weird, look how green this is in the bottom. Looks like that is all corroded down there. Also look at how discolored and burned the plastic is that held the light bulbs in place. Well, that's going to be part of the past because I'm going to replace these light bulbs with some super bright white LEDs. Some circuit design is going to be required, but it's fairly simple. We got 16 volts AC coming into the circuit up there. We're putting that through a one-way rectifier, just a little diode. That, I already tested that. I have a little diode soldered onto the back of the circuit board right there. That leaves us with 7.65 volts DC. And to that we are connecting the two LEDs in parallel, not in series. It would probably make a lot more sense to connect them in series, but the parallel design is given on this circuit board right there, so I'm just going to stick with it. And of course, in series with that, we need a dropping resistor. The LEDs appear to work quite nicely at a current of something around 100 milliamps. At a current of around 100 milliamps, there is a 3 volt drop across the diodes. So we got the 7.65 volts DC minus 3 volts. Leaves us with 4.65 volts that we need to drop across this resistor, and then it's just a question of applying Ohm's law. We got the voltage that we want to drop, we got the current that is going to flow through the resistor, as that remains the same throughout all of this circuit. And we can finally calculate our resistor value. 46.5 ohms. Of course, there is no 46.5 ohms resistor. The next standard value would be 47 ohms. I don't know if I have one, so maybe I'm just going to use a 56, something like that. We'll see. And there we have the circuit board upgraded to LEDs. And on the back I wired in a little 1N4004 diode and a 100 ohm resistor. Yes, a 100 ohm resistor. I first went with a 56 ohm resistor, but I don't know, I guess the 100 milliamps, 3 volts, that was probably not quite right. I guess the meters on the bench power supply are not that accurate. So that low resistance actually caused the LEDs to become quite warm, so I raised the value to 100 ohms. And as you can clearly see, if I turn on the tuner, that is bright. That is really bright. It is flickering a little bit, of course. That's only a one-way rectification, but it shouldn't be all that obvious if you just look at it through the display. I'm holding the LEDs in place as we take a look at the display. That leaves some things to be desired. I now have the circuit board back in place, and as you can see, I put in a strip of the diffuser screen that I pulled out of an old LCD panel, and that did the trick. That display now looks pretty good, and the tuner does work. I also went ahead and removed the remains of that AM loop antenna. It used to connect right there. I unsoldered that, and I also took out that broken holder. The Fisher FM-226 tuner has been put back together, and it should now be good to go again for another couple of years. I hope. I'm not going to do any endlessly long and boring segments of scanning up and down the dial. However, I do want to demonstrate one thing. At the moment I have only 2 meters of wire hooked up as an antenna, but it does manage to pull in this station.
WDR 4.
Meine Lieblingshits.
Well, that was nice of them to play a jingle right on time. This is WDR 4, a station located in the western central part of Germany, and we are down here in northern Germany, several hundred kilometers away from that transmitter, I'm sure. So that's quite remarkable that this cheap little tuner manages to get such a good reception of that weak station.